Meanwhile, ActionSA in the Eastern Cape says Operation Shanela in Nelson Mandela Bay shows no signs of improvement. The party says the situation has instead worsened in the metro. Let's get some reaction to that in just a moment. Right, let's take you now to Athol Trollip to give us some response there from ActionSA. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time. You're saying that you're not seeing any signs of improvement since the launch of Operation Shanela. Why is that?
Well, first of all, let me just say that the Eastern Cape is renowned for generally being a peaceful place, very poor province and very, very poorly run. But we've now become the crime capital of the country, and Nelson Mandela Bay and Mthatha in particular. And what concerns us is whenever there's a number of people being murdered at violent criminal scenes, the police minister arrives in his hat and has a photo opportunity and makes all sorts of commitments, and nothing changes. People are now being killed on a daily basis in these major two metro cities, and there is no decline in the criminality. And I mean, recently we heard about Minister Chikunga, whose convoy was under protection of VIP protection officers, was stopped on the freeway because they'd driven over some spikes, and the VIP protection officers were overwhelmed by criminals who stole their firearms. Now, if people who have the protection and the privilege of VIP protection are being taken advantage of like that by criminals, imagine what the man and woman in the street in the northern areas of Nelson Mandela Bay, where gang warfare is daily fare, imagine what kind of circumstances that they live in. And I hasten to add that the people of the Eastern Cape are sick and tired of the lawlessness in this province. We presented a petition and a memorandum to Premier Oscar Mobiane on the 26th of April. And hundreds of us were there. Our President Herman Mashaba was there, and the President hasn't even deigned it fit to respond to that petition. So we literally have a government that is overwhelmed and cannot deal with this wave of crime that is sweeping across this province. And we believe that it's time for people to register to vote so that we can get a competent government that can deal with crime, because this one clearly can't.
What do you think is the problem here when it comes to dealing with crime? What approach is government using? And perhaps that approach may just be failing repeatedly.
Well, I think primarily crime is being driven up by a really poorly performing economy, and poverty is one of the main causes of criminality. But poor people aren't criminals. Criminals take advantage of an atmosphere where criminality can prevail. And we've seen that our police services are completely overwhelmed. They are under-resourced. Police services that we visited in the province and mentioned in our petition are so badly equipped that they simply cannot combat crime. Many of the police stations that we visited are locked at night so that the police can feel safe from criminals. Many of them are secured by private security companies. So the police services can't even secure themselves, let alone the communities that rely on their reaction to crime. And, you know, initiatives like we had in Nelson Mandela Bay when I was the mayor there many years ago, like having a shot spotter system where a shot is fired, police can respond immediately. Those things have been done away with and they're no longer there. So it's almost as if we have a government that doesn't really care about what's happening to criminality in this country, and it's a great sadness.
So when it comes to the actual residents themselves, how are they being affected by the increase? I mean, you say that it's a worsening situation.
Well, you know, let me give you a classic example. Just this week, and last week, we had a number of young school children that consumed food from local spaza shops that resulted in food poisoning and illness and even death. And what we saw there was that the police arrive on the scene, they scurry around, they go and look into these spaza shops and see if there's any expired food, and then they go away and the shops open and life goes on as normal. Now, we are saying that, you know, what is good for big food chains that have health inspectors and make sure that the food is what it says it is and it's not counterfeit, the same thing should apply to areas where poor people live. And we just see that there's too much neglect of poor people in this country, and they have to live with the most unbelievable circumstances, like twilight zones where criminality just flourishes. And we believe that the police need to be better resourced, better led, certainly better led. We need a new Minister of Police that can motivate the police force to do their job. And also, we find that police services don't have vehicles. Vehicles are unserviceable. They take months to get repaired. So it really is just a woeful situation that requires leadership and political will to turn this matter around. But it also starts right at the top. We've got our president dealing with the criminals that were caught breaking into his property and stealing dollars out of his couch. And there's no explanation for what those dollars were doing there. So criminality is entertained at the top and it flourishes at the bottom. And that's what needs to change in South Africa.
Tell us a little bit more about the outcome of the recent report by the Public Protector when it comes to the provision of essential services and infrastructure in the Eastern Cape, which highlighted the alarming challenges faced by certain police stations in the Eastern Cape, which, would speak to the worsening situation when it comes to crime, which you make mention of.
Well, as I said, it requires political will to deal with reports like the Public Protector's report, like the Zondo Commission report. The Zondo Commission report cost billions of rand. It's now been swept under the carpet. Nothing's been done. The president says he'll act against his cabinet ministers once they've been charged. Nobody's going to charge them because the president himself should have charged them. But that doesn't happen. So there's no political will to change the status quo in South Africa, and that's why we're so excited as ActionSA that there's a registration weekend coming up to motivate South Africans to register to vote and to vote the government out with their feet so that we can start changing the situation in South Africa. The best way to deal with criminality and corruption and all that goes with it is to get a new government that cares, that can drive the economy and make sure that people can get jobs and that the country can prosper, and then we'll see a decline in criminality.
Premier Oscar Mabuyana, has he responded to your memorandum at all?
No, he hasn't responded, and it's been nearly 7 months. And that's the kind of disdain that we as a political party that's contesting against his political party. Imagine what happens to, the man in the street who petitions the Premier about an issue that affects them directly. They'll be completely ignored. And it's this kind of arrogance that always comes before a fall, and we believe that the fall is coming for the government. We're very excited about that time.
So how are you taking it up? Having not had a response in 7 months, is it something that you're going to just, leave beneath the carpet, or are you going to now draft another memorandum? Is there some sort of action from your end to push for a response?
The opportunity to speak to you on your program today is going to mobilize or galvanize a response. I'm convinced of that, because writing letters and sending more petitions doesn't do anything. But once you expose the government for being completely callous and having no sense of batupili, which means putting the people first, I'm sure Oscar Mabuyane will be responding to our petition and memorandum after this exposure on your TV show. And I must thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you. But I also have to excuse myself because I've got a public meeting that will starting at 3 o'clock, and I need to get back to it.
Thank you so much, Athol Trollip. Let's leave it there for now. Eastern Cape Provincial Chairperson of ActionSA, speaking about Operation Shanela, which has been launched in the city, seemingly not having any difference when it comes to tackling the scourge of crime.